Alright guys, if you got your books, if you want to open up to page 299, what I'm going to be going over with you guys is chapter 12, some of the more key points in going about writing the cause and effect essay. And as you know, this is the last type of essay that we're going to be going over in this class. So essentially what I wanted to do today was go over some of the more key concepts in how to go about writing this particular type of essay. Now, many of the papers that you do write in college will require an analysis of causes or circumstances that lead to a given result or situation. In analyzing situations such as these, what you typically do is give the effect or result and follow it up by analyzing the causes that produce that particular effect. For example, if we're going about doing a cause and effect essay this way, we might say something like, why is the grass green? Now, if we're going to do a cause and effect essay analyzing this particular situation, what we're doing here is first mentioning the effect itself, green grass, and then going on to analyze or describe the causes of that. You may spend a paragraph talking about chlorophyll. You may spend another paragraph talking about photosynthesis. You may spend yet another paragraph talking about light reflection, how that produces the green color. Now, doing it this way, beginning with the effects and analyzing the causes, this isn't the only way to go about doing cause and effect essays. On the other hand, you may also be given topics that require you to point out the cause of a certain situation and determine or analyze the resulting effects. For example, something else you might want to do you might say something like, what is the effect of cartoon violence on young children? Now, you can see the difference here. Instead of beginning with the cause and analyzing the effects, what we're doing here is talking about the effects of cartoon violence and going through and analyzing those particular effects. Okay, we're talking about what is that particular effect? Okay, does it raise violence in young children? Does it lead to apathy towards violence? You know, as opposed to the first one here where we're analyzing, here's the effect, these are the causes. We're basically just doing the opposite here. Here's the cause, here are the effects. So with those being the two major ways to go about writing the cause and effect essay, what I want to do now is talk to you guys about a few major points that you're going to want to consider when writing your own cause and effect essay. First thing you're going to want to think about, do not confuse process with cause and effect. You remember that when we discussed process papers, we talked about the fact that a process paper tells how an event or a product came about. Now, on the other hand, a cause and effect paper will tell why something happened. For example, we want to talk about something like World War II. Let's go with that. A process paper would tell how the United States entered World War II, mentioning things like a congressional vote, military stabilization. They could go either route with that, discussing either one of those processes and basically discussing them from beginning to end and how it eventually led up to the United States entering World War II. Now, a cause and effect essay, on the other hand, would probably take the same topic in a different route, mentioning things like why the United States entered World War II, probably focusing primarily on the cause of the bombing of Pearl Harbor with the resulting effect of the United States entering the Second World War. You guys see the difference? Another thing you're going to want to consider when you're writing your cause and effect essays. Avoid logical fallacies. Logical fallacies are essentially assertions that don't necessarily follow or make sense logically. Probably the biggest logical fallacy in dealing with cause and effect essays is the post hoc fallacy. Now, the post hoc ergo propter hoc logical fallacy essentially states after this, therefore, because of this, which doesn't necessarily make sense out of context. So let me give you an example. Let's say something like a black cat crossed my path and 10 minutes later I broke my ankle. Therefore, the black cat caused my broken ankle. You see the fallacy there, the lack of reason, the lack of logic. It doesn't necessarily follow that just because a black cat crossed your path that you broke your ankle. That's the reason you broke your ankle. In discussing the different ways to go about writing your cause and effect essay, discussing the major ideas behind the cause and effect essay itself, I've pretty much touched on everything that I want to go over with you guys. So before we move on to anything else, does anybody have any questions? No questions?
Do you want us to support what we're saying, or just give instances?
No, essentially, when you're doing a cause and effect essay, yeah, you're almost kind of supporting what you're saying, but depending on which way you're going about doing it. You know, if you're saying, this is the cause, these are the effects, certainly you're going to want to prove to some degree how those effects are, that those effects are in fact genuine, that they are actual effects of that particular cause, or, you know, if you're doing it the other way, you're definitely going to want to support your assertions that these are the causes behind this particular effect. Probably more so in that instance. If you're beginning with an effect and discussing the causes, I think you're really more so, it's really more so on you to sort of prove what you're saying then, because you are essentially asserting, unless you're doing something really scientific and factual, like, you know, we discussed green grass, okay, that's very factual, it's very scientific. But if you're doing something that is more your opinion, more assertive, more this is what I think are the causes behind this particular, you know, thing. Like, for example, we talked about what are the effects of cartoon violence on young children. Something like that is certainly going to be more your opinion, and you can certainly back that up with factual basis. I would certainly encourage you to do so. You know, all that does is essentially provide sound basis, sound reasoning, sound factual support for your assertion. But you know, essentially what you're doing in that particular type of essay is saying, here's what I think the effects of cartoon violence are on young children. So really, it's really going to depend on what you are, what you're discussing, what your particular topic is. Any other questions? All right, guys. In that case, what I'd like you to do is look over at